So I went live earlier today, and it was a really good live, and it was the whole topic of veganism that came up. I kind of let lives. I've only been really doing them at TikTok, not really any of the other places, but I kind of let lives do their own little flow and let people have their say and their discussions and whatever. And like I said, veganism came up, and I did do a video about this not that long ago, but I thought I would bring it up again because it seems to be something people get really confused about. And veganism is nothing to do with food, nothing to do with a diet. In fact, it's completely separate. It's just that those beliefs can harbor sometimes on some people's idea of food, which of course is why this gets tricky. So basically, to someone who's truly made this connection, they no longer want to be associated with the process of being a victimizer. They see all animals as beings, not just the ones that are not seen as food. So to a vegan, the whole thing, there's no difference between any animal, no difference between humans. We might have differences in personality, but no one is more deserving of life than another. Nobody is more entitled than another. And so that's all it comes down to, is just not wanting to be part of that process. And like I said, there's so much to be spoken about from that ethical perspective and not taking part in it, but also the perspective of health and these other, environmental implications. And there's really no reason. It just goes back to, there's so much conditioning. And that's why I thought I would talk about it. There's so much conditioning in our society. These strong pushes and manipulation tactics to get people to keep doing something. It's been used in religion. It's been used in consuming animal products, which, like I said, they're animals, they're not products. Body parts, or whatever you want to call them. That's what I call them, because that's what they are. But whatever you want to use, it doesn't matter at the end of the day. And everybody deserves the right to live their life with their families or whatever as they see fit. And animals are no exception to that. So it's interesting what happens when you really make this connection, because you start to see things differently. You start to see things that, like mockery and ridicule, things like that. Again, it depends on how far you go with this, but I find in most cases it's something vegans don't really partake in. Again, there would be exceptions, but this whole ridiculing other people situation, I mean, again, some might dabble in it in terms of making fun of people who consume this stuff, but normally it's to prove a point, to show the ridiculousness. On the flip side, it just seems weirder or wrong or whatever if you're sitting in the sort of, I guess, in the target seat. But the more you actually truly make these connections, the more evolved you become from a spiritual and ethical point of view. Jokes at other people's expense, it's not funny anymore, like at all. It's just cruel. And this is everything to do with that. Like, if you've made that connection, it's not funny to watch people chase birds around. It's not funny. It's not funny to, kick some birds, whatever, out of a nest. Out of a tree or something. It's not funny. It's not funny to make fun of someone because they don't understand something. Someone's talking and the other person doesn't understand. It's not funny. You end up finding out a lot of the things people deem to be funny, a lot of the things people go to comedy shows for, or how they engage in making jokes, it's just mean. Now, you might not think that there's a connection here, but I think there is. The more time you spend partaking in things that are cruel, from the first point of putting cruelty, whether you want to see it that way or not, that is what's happening. These animals aren't treated well at all. And even if they were, it wouldn't matter, because at the end of the day, if it's on your plate, all the more betrayal. But you putting that inside of you, from an energetic point of view, you're absorbing that. So where else is the cruelty going to lie? It's already cruel to the body. It's cruel to the animal. It's cruel to the planet. What's a little joke after that? What's a little prank? So I think in terms of connecting to ourselves on a higher spiritual level, the more areas you can cut out the cruelty in your perspective, in your point of view, the better. It's just better. And the understanding of how you deal with your shame, how you deal with your judgment. Do you face it head on? Do you accept it? Do you take accountability for it? Or do you push it onto other people? Which of course wouldn't be good. Because then you're not going to fix it. You're not going to figure out where it came from, or, how to make things better for yourself. It just, there's so many of these types of topics. And again, everybody's different. Everybody sees things differently. I don't dispute that. But I think it's like anything. We need to stop oppressing beings. Animals are the most oppressed beings and have been since the beginning of time. There is literally no level of human genocide or torture that can even come close to the numbers of animals. Not even close. Ever. So that just goes to show that they definitely are the most minority, oppressed beings on this planet, and they have been since the beginning of time. And most of these animals are caring, they're loving, they're docile, they keep to themselves. Most of them wouldn't even exist in the first place if human beings didn't get involved. And I might sound whatever, but we don't need that many. It's not the natural course of things. Like, we should just let things go as they're supposed to. The more humans mess with the whole thing of nature, and look, this can be tricky because there are some modern day things that improve things, but then there's some modern day things that don't. And again, it all depends on, we got to think about the ethical implications, and who that affects, why it affects them, what we're doing about it, why we're doing it. Like, one of the things in terms of this that I thought was really awful, like, there's so many, but I'm just picking one because it popped into my head. I don't know if you've ever heard of those horseshoe crabs. Now, these are prehistoric creatures. They are literally from dinosaur times, but probably even before that. They even look like that, like the way that they look. They're like, it's almost like I've forgotten what his name is. He's one of the characters in Star Wars. So it's in Return of the Jedi, and he has this like hat that's got like these little spikes and stuff on it. That's what the shell of this horseshoe crab looks like. Now, this is where it gets tricky. They catch them and they siphon some of their blood, which is bright blue. Apparently it's been responsible for helping with certain sicknesses and whatever. Again, I don't know as much on that. I guess it makes sense that I wouldn't focus on that so much, because in my opinion, if it's taking away from another being, is it actually worth it? Like, to take that many horseshoe crabs, this creature who's been around since prehistoric times, this is walking history, walking evolution. Like, do we have a right to do that? I mean, it's kind of icky. And you can see them, they're all hooked up and they have this horrible tubing shoved into them. I mean, that can't be comfortable. It has to be incredibly painful. And then they release them, but I'm sure there'll be plenty of them that don't survive. I mean, kind of reminds me of if you saw the Avatar movie, the second one where they're taking the fluid out of these, I mean, they're make-believe, but still, I forget what they're called, the Tulkun or something. Anyway, they're kind of like these sort of whale sort of creatures. And, they have to kill this entire being just to get a vial of this fluid inside. Like, it kind of reminds me of that, and I wonder if that's why, because James Cameron's a vegan, I wonder if that's why he put it in the movie. Kind of makes me wonder. But it's these kinds of implications. And then let's go further with it. Now, I don't know as deep into this. I'm just giving some perspectives, the idea of thinking outside of the box, considering all options, or as many as possible, many as you could think of. But let's go into this bracket. Now, there's one of the sort of buzz things is consuming collagen-based products, right? So usually this is bovine collagen, so it's taken from cows, right? Wouldn't have been ethically, I'm sure. obviously with the whole process and the fact that a lot of people don't care about cows. It's pretty awful. But again, let's think about this. How is the collagen that's already been made and made for that creature's body, how is consuming that going to increase yours? That's not even how collagen's made in the human body, or anyone's body for that matter. The way that you increase collagen, or at least get it at a healthy level, is by consuming the things that help your body make it in the first place, which is vegetables, especially leafy greens. These are really important to the production of collagen and elastin production for you to make it. Things like processed foods and high sugar make it more difficult for you to make this, to create it, to absorb it, to use it. So if you're eating a highly processed, high sugary diet and then not enough vegetables, it doesn't matter how much bovine collagen you take, it's not going to increase your collagen production. What increases that is dropping the sugar and the processed foods and upping the vegetables, so your body can make it itself like it's supposed to. This is my point. The reason why I brought this up is this whole concept of maybe we wouldn't have to torture all these animals or perceive ourselves to make all this medication for a problem that's caused by our diet in the first place. It's quite likely it's that. If it's that way for this one instance, and I know that to be true, that's actually a fact when it comes to this whole consuming bovine collagen. Doesn't actually do anything for you because it's from a different species and the collagen was made for that animal. The animal made the conversion. The animal created it through their diet, which is what we have to do as well. So if that's the case, considering animal body parts and what comes out of them is a huge contributing factor to every single, pretty much, other than like processed foods and whatever, but pretty much every single disease that we have. We wouldn't have to be torturing these animals to eat them, for one. We wouldn't have to torture these animals to extract stuff from their bodies, for two, and torture them for diseases we wouldn't have in the first place if we were eating the way we're supposed to. I mean, if that doesn't give you pause to consider, I don't know what does. Because it's lunacy. It's like, we can kind of liken it to how people used to like use aversion shock therapy or shock therapies, you know, for people who had mental instability, right? It's crazy. We know that now. Back then we didn't. But when you really think about it logically, why would sending painful electrical pulses through the brain, how would that help? It's just trauma inducing. And for what? Just to be cruel? I mean, it's crazy when you think about it. All this stuff is crazy. It's insane. And I think it's exactly the same. Taking bovine collagen to increase your own is just as crazy as thinking that shock therapy, which is crazy to even think about, and it's barbaric, would help improve someone's brain. Or lobotomy, cutting up the brain. Like, how is that going to make it improve better? How is it going to make it work better? How is it going to, whatever? How is it? It's insane. All of this stuff is insane. When all of it surrounds us eating something we're not supposed to be eating. Now all these other things have to be done. All diseases that human beings have are caused by eating animal body parts and what comes out of them, because we were never meant to eat this stuff. And now we have to create all these other torturous whatever to make medication and all this sort of stuff to fix a problem that we've created first within ourselves. It's crazy. That's what it is. It's nuts. Actually crazy. And you might think that what I'm saying sounds very simplistic and all the rest of it, but it's the truth. The stuff is going to come out eventually. It's just going to take a long time because human beings take so long to make connections. That's why I don't think we evolved, from animals. I don't think we evolved from. I think we're close from a like a DNA point of view to the bonobo, which is what we're closest to, but we're still different. We're not the same. And human beings, if you look at what we do throughout history, we repeat the same stuff over, and isn't that the term? Isn't that the definition of insanity? We do the same thing over and over again. We don't evolve. We could start to put some logic into these situations and start thinking clearly and try, but you can't do that until you cut the other crap out. You can't do that until you cut out eating any animal body parts and what comes out of animals. You can't think clearly until you cut out alcohol and drugs and medication. You can't think clearly until you start making better connections and thinking more positive things about yourself and living in that type of state. You can't do it. You can't do that if you're eating nothing but junk food. Your whole entire body, all your organs, nothing is getting the information that it needs, and nothing is making connections. So I guess in that sense, it makes sense that people aren't making good decisions, and they're thinking up crazy things and making products and torturous procedures for creatures who don't deserve it. I guess it makes sense. But when you start to think about this stuff, it's crazy. It's crazy. How much crazier does it have to get? How much suffering does there have to be? How much cruelty do we have to inflict on people? Even let's go with the last little point before I head off. Even this whole concept of in some like ancient cultures, tribal communities, there's some stuff I agree with and some stuff like this that I strongly disagree with. But there's some in like African, sort of cultures or Middle Eastern cultures. There's this whole idea, that if you have sex with a virgin, you'll be cleansed of all your diseases. Like that was how a lot of sexually transmitted diseases got, sent around. And that's a whole different thing. I can get into that another video if you want, but it's crazy. There's no way by having sex with someone else because you deem them to be pure, which isn't even the true meaning of the word virgin or purity anyway. The real meaning, long before religion stole it and made it weird and sick, was being pure, being true to yourself. So if you're being pure and true to yourself, you'll always be a virgin. You'll always be pure because you're being authentic. So it's a state of mind. It's a way of being, not what's between your legs, not about your sexual organs. Just like by having sex with someone who has never had sex with anyone will cure you. A lot of this stuff is just nonsensical, illogical, and crazy. And that's what this whole video is about, is for us to stop and think about these outdated. That's why I say human beings don't evolve. We don't evolve because we take on what our parents said, what they told us to do or what they told us to think, etc. And then we do that. We don't question it. We just do it. And then we raise our children to do the same. And then it just continues on and on and on and on. And then you don't even know why you did that thing. You just did it because your parents do it. You didn't ask. You didn't use critical thinking. You didn't use cognitive thought. Nothing. You just continue the process. And when we think back on the times when this sort of stuff was going on, there wasn't information available. You had to trust your parent. You had to trust your priest or your spiritual or religious advisor. There was no other way. And they were just as crazy. They didn't know either. We don't have to do that anymore. So it's this idea of thinking critically and stepping out of, maybe that's how it was back then, but it's not good. We need to do something else and move forward. We need to evolve. We need to make better decisions. We need to grow and develop. We need to stop acting like this because it's crazy. It's crazy. Again, I can do more videos like this. I love talking about this kind of stuff because it makes people think. And that's what I want to do. I want people to think. And that's why I make this kind of content. Think outside of the box. Think about the possibilities and other things that we could be doing that are better than what we've done, because we've done that already. We don't need to keep making history repeat itself over and again with this stupidity and insanity. Anyway, I'll leave you with those and maybe chew on them for a little bit and think about it, and we can, go further from there.